everybody, to this episode of the Because She Can series. I have with me a very special guest today. We have Samantha Gallia. She is an oral radiology resident at the University of Washington, and she is Miss Washington USA 2023. So welcome, Samantha.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, welcome to the Because She Can series. There's so much I want to talk about, but I think I want to start with your career in dentistry because I don't think I've met a lot of pageant girls who have chosen to pursue dentistry. So tell me more. What inspired you to go to dental school?
Yeah. So my dad actually was always my inspiration to go into dentistry. He's an oral surgeon back in California, which is where I grew up. And I grew up running around his private practice. And I loved seeing that patients came into his office in pain and he was able to use all of his skills and training to take that pain away. And so I never really even questioned whether or not dentistry was for me. I've always loved it. I've loved the subject matter. And I chose right out of high school actually to go to an accelerated pre-dental program. So I did my bachelor's of science in 3 years. And then I went to the only 3-year dental school in the country. And I chose that because it's what I knew I was meant to do. And I'm also really proud to be a woman in dentistry because it's still a male dominated field. So I love kind of getting to bring the leadership aspect to it as well.
That's incredible. And I knew you had been in an accelerated program, but you became a dentist at like 24. How did you do it so quickly? That's so impressive.
I do get some strange looks from patients sometimes. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes people will definitely assume I'm the hygienist. So that was something to overcome. But I mean, it really boils down to your age doesn't determine your leadership characteristics or your qualifications. It's really your training. So for me, just being really confident in that I put my all into, my education and learning everything so that I can serve my patients well. So I think the age really isn't the biggest factor in whether or not you're a good healthcare practitioner.
Hmm. Well, I also want to ask about what your experience is like now as a radiology resident, and you're also Miss Washington USA, which congratulations, by the way. I'm so glad that
Thank
we
you
are
so
sister
much.
queens. And I loved watching you win. Like your reaction was amazing. But what is it like to balance your time between those two commitments? Because I imagine both keep you pretty busy.
It is challenging in the way of I really value the responsibility of both of those commitments. Like I honor both of them. My role as an oral radiology resident. So basically I am learning how to interpret 3D x-rays for other dentists and doctors. So instead of collaborating more on the patient end, I'm really collaborating with other dentists and doctors about their patients. And then, so obviously that it feels like a big responsibility to kind of be holding people's welfare in your hands. And then also being Miss Washington USA, it's a big responsibility because there was so many incredible women that wanted that role. So to really make sure that, I'm upholding my end of the bargain and being a good leader in our state, it's a little bit of pressure, but I think that what it boils down to is time management. And I learned in dental school such great time management skills. And really not to take on more than I can chew. So this is my first year competing in the USA system. And I chose to do it this year because I knew I had the time to dedicate to a role like that. So it's really important for me to show other young women that you can do both of these things. You can be, a professional and pursue your other passions and things.
I love the way that you phrase that. Like it is a really big responsibility, and you want to do right by the people who also had this dream that we kind of all shared when we went into competition weekend and that we were lucky to walk away with. But I know you, as you said, this was your first time doing a USA pageant. I think you'd competed in the past, but you'd never done a preliminary for Miss USA. So what drew you to sign up for Miss Washington USA? I mean, you were also moving here from California for your radiology program. So what kind of got you in the door?
Yeah, I have a deep family history in Washington. First of all, my dad actually did his oral surgery residency at University of Washington Medical Center as well. So that's kind of a special bond we share. My oral radiology kind of mentor did his training at University of Washington, and my younger brother is up in Washington with me. He is a junior and he's a rower at UW. So it's really, I have a lot of deep history there. I grew up, I lived in California, Oregon, and Washington. So I'm a Pacific Northwest girl through and through. And the reason that I ultimately decided to compete in the USA system when I did is I've had a really great experience in pageantry in the past. I haven't, you know, been in that many pageants, but it taught me a lot of life skills. And I was really looking to become connected in my community in Washington. And I knew that that was an avenue that was going to allow me to use my skills to serve my community in a greater way. And that's what I wanted to do. And that's what I've seen other women in the Miss USA system do. And I really looked up to them. And here I am.
Here you are. And look, it worked out. Now we're both going to be competing at Miss USA in a few months, which is wild. It's so crazy. But I feel you on that, like having the opportunity to make a difference within this organization, to use the platform that it comes with to do something positive, I think is really unique. And I know that you're doing that with your platform, hashtag Girl Docs Rock. So tell me more about where this came from and what does Girl Docs Rock mean?
Yeah, it really came from my experience, pursuing dentistry as a woman in science and in the healthcare field. The numbers in terms of women in medicine, in dentistry, in, science fields overall are really encouraging. We have almost a 50% rate in terms of now the women entering dental school and medical school compared to men. But the larger problem at hand, in my opinion, is the leadership. So at the really top leadership level, there's still not a lot of women filling those seats. And so I kind of feel a responsibility as a young woman in healthcare to show other girls that you don't have to settle for, stepping your foot in the door, being in the room. You can be the one leading the room. And so that's why I started Girl Docs Rock. I've been kind of a leader throughout my education in dental school. I was the president of the Student Community Outreach and Public Education Organization. So it's really just a way of showing other young people that you can use your talents, you can use, your skills within your career to better your society.
I love it. It's interesting those themes that you bring up, because I feel like I've noticed the same thing as a young woman pursuing the business field. I see a lot of women around me in kind of those entry level positions. And please ignore the noise in the background in my apartment. This is what small space living is like.
I get
But no, like I've noticed that a lot when it comes to the business world. We see so many young women come in at the entry level, but then the farther we look up the ranks, I see fewer and fewer women in leadership. And that's something I kind of like explored in my book that I wrote about women in business, and that you have seen too in the medical field. And it's something my mom went through, and she's a physician now, but going to medical school in the 80s and 90s, there weren't that many
It was a
women
lot different than today.
So going off that, where do you see the future of women in your field, maybe 5, 10, 15 years from now, and how is Girl Docs Rock kind of supporting that mission to get there?
I see a vision for the future that really honors the women of the past, like your mom, because I'm so grateful for the women that came before me in my field. Being the very first woman to ever go to medical school, the very first woman to ever go to dental school, because it's always tough to be the first. And because they did that, I have the opportunity to pursue my education, to pursue what I love, which I wouldn't have had a chance to before. So I really see my role as a really big responsibility to follow in their footsteps and push our generation to become the generation that levels, the gender leadership gap and allows women to have the chance to fill those seats. And Girl Docs Rock, more than anything, I want to be encouraging and supporting young people that you can be whatever you want to be. And as broad and as kind of silly as that sounds, until we see examples of people doing the things that we dream of doing, a lot of times it seems impossible. So one of the things that I'm really excited to do with Girl Docs Rock is continue to interview strong female leaders in the medical, dental, health fields to show girls you can get there. It's not impossible. Women are doing it. We just don't see it that often. And it really helps to have examples of people who have done those things.
Totally. I agree. Examples make all the difference. Like just having those tangible examples in front of you is really incredible to see, and to say I can get to where they are.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the hard part too, is like sometimes those examples don't exist, so we need like the courage within ourselves to become that example,
Yes.
which I think we kind of are as pageant women who are very much in the public eye. People are looking up to us to kind of lead the way in some situations. So speaking of the public eye, I want to ask about what you have been up to as Miss Washington USA. I know you've been pretty active, going to a lot of events and appearances, so tell me what the highlight of your year has been so far in terms of something you've done. And then let's talk about something that you're really looking forward to doing.
Oh my gosh, there's been so many things. That's such a hard question.
I know, not a fair question.
I would have to say that the very highlight of my year has been in those little moments that I didn't necessarily expect and I wouldn't think would be a big thing.
Mm.
Um, for example, I got to attend the Seattle Philam Fashion Week. And I was super excited to attend this event, but it was in all these little instances of meeting people, meeting kids, having them be so excited to meet me. And I was like, you're excited to meet me. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to meet you. It was really special. It's been special to be able to be at events where there's such strong sense of culture, such a strong sense of community, and then to kind of be welcomed into that. And then of course, one other highlight was getting to attend the Miss Universe pageant last week where USA won. It was a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I'll never forget it.
I am so jealous that you went to Miss Universe. I wanted to go so bad, but I just couldn't swing it. So I was living vicariously through you and everybody else who was posting. I remember watching Miss USA 2022 a few months ago in Reno, and it was just like
Yeah.
an electric energy. But I think Miss Universe is probably Miss USA on steroids in terms of the fan base. But that's awesome. And I've had similar events to you where I feel like when you meet people, especially kids, they're so excited to meet you as a title holder, and they have all these questions, and they're just like, they really think you are like a celebrity or literally like a princess in real life. And so meeting those kids is always such a fun time. I want to ask, how are you kind of preparing for Miss USA? I know they haven't announced the date yet. They haven't told us much about when it's going to be, but I know that like we're already preparing, even though so many states still have to be crowned. So what's kind of what are you working on when it comes to preparing for the national competition?
I think when it comes down to it, my preparation is very similar to that of Miss Washington. There's a lot of things that are bigger that I'm dedicating more time to. You know, it's a totally kind of different level of competition, if you want to call it. But for me, at my core, a really intense experience like that comes from knowing yourself and being able to really authentically represent yourself in a short amount of time. My mindset coming into Miss Washington USA was I am going to show up as the very best version of myself. I am going to display the ways that I could benefit my community with this title because that's, what it should be about. And the reality of it is you never know if on that day they're going to value your skills and experiences over that of somebody else, but all you can do is put your very best foot out there and show exactly what you would do, what your plans are if you were to be given that title. And so that's what I'm doing for Miss USA.
That's incredible. I agree completely that it's not about competing with anybody else who's on that stage that weekend. It's about really putting the best version of you forward, like you said. So just kind of working on yourself and what your message is, what your mission is going to be throughout your year is really what it's all about. And as someone who's been competing for a long time, sometimes it took a while to figure that part out, that like that was what it's really all about, is just bringing the best version of yourself to the competition weekend. So I'm so glad to hear that. I can't wait for us to go to Miss USA together and it just like get to meet everybody and of course have the time of our lives. Do you have any advice for someone looking to compete for the first time, whether it's Miss USA organization, which I know you just did for the first time, or a pageant in general? What advice do you have for them based off of what you've learned through your own experience?
I would say two things. First of all, would be to follow your intuition in terms of what system you want to compete in, and really what you want to try to bring to the table is your full package. I think that there's a lot there in today's society. There's so much information that's coming at us from all directions, but when you're competing in something like a pageant, it really is important, who you are from the inside, how you're going to portray that outside. So I think following your intuition in terms of like where your morals and values line up and where you're going to be able to make the biggest impact. And then secondly, I would say, don't be afraid of failure and don't let, a fear of failure keep you from what is meant for you. And I have a really strong faith. So this is where my faith kind of kicks in. And I believe that, God has a plan for me and all I can do is do the footwork to put myself in that right situation. But, no matter if you, are religious, not religious, have a faith, don't have a faith, it's that idea that all you can do is do the footwork to show up as the best version of yourself and put yourself in the opportunity for great things to happen to you. And a lot of times, I mean, I've had way more no's in my life than I've had yeses in my life. And it can be a little bit painful at first, but a lot of times that no is actually redirection to something better. And I've experienced that time and time again where I look back and I go, oh, I was told no, but I wasn't ready for that opportunity. And now I am. So I think just trusting in yourself that when something is meant for you, it's not going to pass you by. And you don't let, one initial failure or a fear of failure keep you from playing the game.
Don't let fear of failure keep you from playing the game. I love that.
Yeah.
And put in that footwork, like you said. That's I couldn't have phrased it better. So thank you so much, Samantha. I only have like one or two questions left. So first, I want to ask, where can we keep up with you on social media? How do we keep up with everything that you have going on? I know you're very busy and we want to keep up with what Miss Washington USA is doing.
Awesome. Well, I have a few Instagram accounts, which I think that's where I'm the most active. So you can follow Miss WA USA. That's MISSWA USA. You can follow my personal account, which is at Dr. Dr. Samantha and then Gallia, Gallia. And you can follow my Girl Docs Rock account, which is just at Girl Docs Rock.
Awesome. Okay, my last question for you is, do you have any final words of advice that you want to share? And it can be pageant related, it can be dentistry related, life related, just a final piece of advice that you want to leave the audience with.
I think my advice would be geared towards young people, especially young women, because that's really the population that I love to work the most with. And it would be, get to know yourself and your gifts, because we all have special gifts that are kind of things that are unique to us that we are good at. And I think a lot of times, especially in today's world of comparison and social media, we kind of lose those things that are so special about ourselves by looking at the things we lack rather than the things that we have. So look for those things that you love to do that give you a sense of fulfillment, a sense of happiness, a sense of joy, and find a way to use those to serve other people.
Perfect. All right. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much, Samantha, for joining me for this episode of the Because She Can series. And be sure to check out our next episode. That is all for now. Bye.